to our counselors, to all the men, to the activists, the leaders in your communities, thank you for being here. I think today I decided to do something different. I want to pay tribute to my parents, and you will understand when I speak why. I want to pay tribute to my mother, who inspired me, and I want to pay tribute to my father, who raised me. And you must understand those rules very, very well. Those who know me will know that I'm my father's child. But others who know me also know that I had an absent mom, but her background inspired me. So I want to say to you, my mother is the daughter of a miner. She was born in the mines of Carltonville. Tanya, you're going to know a lot more about me today. My mom was born in the mines of Carltonville. My grandfather used to work on the mines. My grandmother was heavily pregnant, she came to visit her from Lesotho. So when people ask you if I'm from Lesotho, say yes, she's from Lesotho. And when she came to get money because she was about to have a baby, my mom. And when she arrived, you know, maybe because she was in a taxi for a long time, Matsidiso, or Amelia, my mom, gave birth. And that's how Refiloe is a South African today. But, so my mom was born, and grandmother took her back to Lesotho. This girl called Matsidiso grew up with a father who would send money home every month end. When she was in grade 5, my grandfather died, or passed away, as we say with people. My grandmother was a subsistence farmer, not a commercial farmer, subsistence farmer. All they had was a horse. My mom has 2 older sisters and 2 younger sisters. She's the middle child. This girl wanted to be a doctor all her life. All she dreamt of was to heal people. She was about to go to high school. She went to school and said to them, her father was going to send money. This father was 6 feet underground, but she had a dream. And grandmother, as illiterate and a subsistence farmer as she was, she believed there was something about this education that would propel Matsidiso Amelia to something in life. So she wrote a letter to her mother and said, Mama, sell the horse because they need school fees here. My grandmother ultimately sold the horse and paid school fees for the first year for my mom and the younger sisters, the 2. Because the older ones were married when they were 17 and 16. That's what used to happen with that generation where my mom comes from. And so my mom, the following year, they needed school fees money again. My grandmother sold the bed and the table where the water, the bucket for 20 liters water, and the rest of the dishes. She left 2 dishes, they can all eat in one plate, and she sold that to put Amelia into school. Then my mother realized that my mother is struggling to put me through school, but I need to stay in this convent because the education here will get me to this dream of becoming a doctor. You know what she did? She went to the nuns at the convent. She said, I don't want to play netball and sports. They said, no, you must. Every child must have sports because you want a well-balanced child. She said, you know what? Let's negotiate. For my school fees, let me be a domestic worker and come and clean the convent and the cafeteria where the nuns eat. And so that's how my mom raised her school fees and even money for the 2 younger ones. This is a 13-year-old girl already thinking about looking after her younger siblings. And so her life progressed. When she was in matric, she realized that in Lesotho, nurses were paid a stipend. And she thought, nursing, medicine, clothes, and she decided to go and study nursing. So she went and became a general nurse, looking after the 2 younger sisters and her mother. Then when she went and she'd send money home. And so from there she became the mother of the family, having started at the age of 13 to look after her mother and her two sisters. Olders were married. They must look after the husband and the new children that they've had in the families. In matric, when she finished nursing, she met my dad through ballroom dancing. That was the extramural activity that they used to have. Somewhere she had 3 children, my 2 older brothers and me. In 1982, she got an opportunity to go to Cuba to become a doctor. My father said, and this is where I want to honor both my parents, it has been your dream as a child to be a medical doctor. Go to Cuba. I will stay behind and raise these 3 children because this is your dream. So you'll understand why I want to give a tribute to my father, a man who wanted to empower, and also I helped his wife achieve her dream of becoming a medical doctor. I'm here today because that man has built me to be the woman I am today. I just want to say a few things about my mom before I cross over to my father. So today my mother is a retired doctor. She came back from Cuba in 1990. She was considered a communist doctor, that she had studied military medicine. At that time we were now staying in Pretoria. And my dad said we couldn't even go and see her at OR Tambo because they kept her in a cell while she was waiting for her flight in transit to Lesotho. Nonetheless, she went to Lesotho. I only got to live with my mother when I was 17 in matric at Pretoria Girls High. So from 6 years, I have not had a mother. So the mother who taught me about my periods, about how to be a woman, was my father. So I'm one of those girls, when it's Mother's Day, I say happy birthday to my mom, Amelia. I also say happy Mother's Day to my father for taking on the role of a mother. Because we must not forget men like my dad. We must continue to honor such men. And we think men are all monsters, but they're beautiful men such as my father, who raised girl children. So now I'm going to transition and tell you about my father. We grew up in Lesotho, having been born this side with my dad. He made sure that I never lacked. He made sure that I understood what it means to be a girl, but he didn't say, make sure you find a rich man, make sure that he looks after you, make sure you bear him children. No, that was not Mr. Nt'sekhe's teachings. The one lesson I always remember that my father taught me was, don't be the girl in a boy's car, be the girl who owns her own car. When it was domestic chores around the house, my dad never said, Refiloe, you go and cook. Tato and Victor, you go and do the garden work. It was first come, first serve. I hated the housework, to be honest. I was the girl with the spade because my dad is actually a farmer. And I would be in the garden. Then we would make the fire. But whoever cooked, the other 2 would wash the dishes. That's how Mr. Nt'sekhe raised us. So, Dr. Aline, I want to say to you, sometimes when you're given opportunities as a young girl, you can actually even exceed boy children. Physically, even in my home, I'm stronger physically than my older brothers. When there's tables to be lifted, Mr. Nt'sekhe never said boys, he said guys, which meant all 3 of us. Let's move this and do it together. And so that's how I was raised. But the reason I'm sharing my parents' story is because my father comes from a slightly wealthier family, and my mom comes from complete poverty. Last year we went to bury a cousin of mine in Lesotho. I was given the task of driving my mother, and my brothers were given the task of running around to ensure that cows and sheep were slaughtered for the funeral. I drove my mom home, she said, you know what, Meme, she calls me Meme, which is baby girl. I've never told you this story. When I was in primary school, there were times as I was walking to school, other children were eating an orange. I would pick up the peels and eat them so that when I get to school, my stomach is not rumbling from hunger. If you ask me why I'm in politics, I'm a single mother of 3 children. I live in Ekurhuleni. My children were born here. I never want to see another Amelia go to school picking up orange peels to fill the stomach because you just want the stomach not to rumble when you get into school class. So I have not experienced poverty firsthand, but I have lived poverty through understanding my mother's own upbringing. And so that's how I found myself propelled into politics. 1995, I got into UCT, and I joined South African Liberal Students Association. And from there, I already saw the failures of ANC from their policies. I knew this is not, they are good as a liberation movement, but liberation movements are not always good at being in government. So from that age, I started interrogating. Remember, we are talking from Mandela's time. I was already interrogating what ANC was going to do to this country. As wonderful as Madiba was in terms of preaching forgiveness, the policies that the ANC were putting to the fore were already telling me that this is not the future of this country. And so I went on to join the DP and then the DA when I completed my studies. But I said to myself, if my mom struggled like this, no child should ever have to go through that. Irrespective of your age, your color, your gender, your religion. Because when a neighbor's child is hungry, how does my children play with that child who's hungry without me feeding them? So when you look at the broken city that Ekurhuleni is, to me, it represents the background my mother had. But what I'm saying to you is through the DA, we can bring hope to the city. And every one of us in this room, I'm not a one-man show. The respect I have for Tanya, for driving issues in that caucus and bringing them to the fore. The team that Tanya has, and the new candidates when we go into government, and I'm not saying if, I'm saying when we get into government, we are going to turn the city around. Amanda. As a black woman, and I want to state, as a black woman, when we think of black people in positions, we think of corruption across the continent. The dream I want, my father always said to me, humility is also a strength. My dream is one day when my tombstone is written on, I want somebody to look at that tombstone and say, when we think of excellence in government, Refiloe epitomized excellence in this continent of Africa. So when people ask you, why is Refiloe running to be a mayoral candidate? Say, when you look at Zimbabwe, Cyril, Zuma, the whole continent, this one girl stood up and said, I want to change how black people are perceived as being powers of corruption. When I look at people coming to Cape Town, I want people to say, I want to move to Ekurhuleni because the DA gets things done. I want Aline's children to say, we have a choice. Mom, sorry, you were saying Cape Town is the flagship municipality, but actually, under Refiloe's leadership, with her partner Tanya, we want to move to Ekurhuleni. The opportunities that this city gives us, say to me, we can actually lead a world-class city. And I'm glad we are here because we must remember that it's not an overnight journey. Eileen, we will not get Cape Town overnight, but we want to take the time to change the city. I want people, even within the first couple of months, to start feeling that basics are being done. Tanya, it cannot be right that we have power outages on a daily basis in this metro. Who is going to want to invest here? It cannot be right that residents are fighting over water, yet water is there. It's just about getting pumps built, and there's money, and the money is used incorrectly. These are some basic things. It cannot be right that you sit with rubbish outside your gate waiting for waste removal. That's indignity. And they tell you trucks are sitting somewhere getting repaired. You know your car goes in for repairs. Don't you schedule your car? Don't you make a plan? Common sense has to be common. I'm not saying we're going to run a city on science and rocket science. There's some common sense things that need to happen for the city to operate. It cannot be right that a street bulb is not fixed because there's no bulbs in stores. Why did you not know that last month you used so many bulbs and make sure that there's so many bulbs in store? Is that not common sense? I don't want us to speak big English here. I want us to talk about common sense. Getting the basics right is getting the basics right. Let's find common sense. You cannot say to me, electricity is out because you're short of engineers. When there's retired engineers, you retired them because they were white. Get them back and let's fix the electricity. Do you think if I have electricity, I'm going to care whether the person who generated it was black or white? I have electricity, and I'll probably be grateful to that white engineer because my children can come home to a cooked meal because we've got electricity. It's also part of social cohesion. So we retire experts and we're thinking it's a miracle that the electricity is out. Yes, there's Eskom, but there's things that we can do. So I'm here to say to you, we have an opportunity to give people hope in this country. We have an opportunity to give people hope in Ekurhuleni. And by making sure that we do the basics right, the la-di-da complicated stuff we'll deal with later. But let's get into office. But getting into office has to happen in a particular way. I think all the speakers before me talked about it. People don't register. And then when the hype of an election comes, we suddenly like, can I go and vote? Start selling the hype now of what me and the team of Ekurhuleni and the DA are going to bring to the city. 27th of October, if that's the day chosen for election, it's too late to want to vote if you forgot to register correctly. When we go out of here, let's get people to understand that if you are not registered to vote, you will not kick the ANC out. And say to people, do you want to have a life of continued power outages, continued water outages, continued streets that are falling apart, continued lack of waste removal, and the list continues? Then carry on and vote for ANC. Or you want Refiloe with Tanya and the team in the Ekurhuleni from the DA, who is going to try and fix the very basics that are hampering you from prospering. Do you see why I painted the picture of my mom? Humble beginnings, today Dr. Nt'sekhe. It doesn't matter where you come from. If my mother could do it, every child in Ekurhuleni can do it. Do you understand where I'm coming from? So yesterday is about women, but majority of the voters are women.
Yes, that's right.
Speak to your neighbor. Ladies, when you have pillow talk with their husbands, show them the right way. You can swing a husband's mindset in the bedroom. So when you're talking to neighbors, when you're having the high teas, let's start having these conversations of What is Refiloe bringing to the fore? I don't have millions to give you. I'm bringing you my passion for this city. I really bringing you my passion for this city. With 3 children, I want my children to grow up in a city that will make them reach their potential. I want to raise men of honor who tomorrow can be somebody in the city. Whether they are employed or they start their own businesses, that's the city I want them to grow up in. And my children are not just the ones I gave birth to. Sally's children are my children. Tanya's daughter is my child. Aline's children are my children. Stefani's twins are my children too. We need to start looking at society from, it takes a village to raise a child. So for me, when we leave this room, let's go out and push the DA message to say, you know what? I don't want your money. We get paid decent salaries. I'm proud to say I wear clothes from Pep, I wear clothes from Ackermans, I wear them from Fashion World, because I'm not here to be wearing a 15,000 dress because I'm embezzling tenders in the municipality. And you know what saddens me? There are people who have said to me, Refiloe will vote, we could vote for you. But my husband has a tender from Ekurhuleni. And I say to these friends of mine, does your husband do the job, or is he paid just to give kickbacks to the ANC? Because if your fear of voting for DA is because you're worried about what you get, do your own introspection. I'm saying to you, for a change, if your company is doing a good job for Ekurhuleni, why are you worried about the tender being taken away from you?
Exactly.
And we must be honest with these conversations. If you were saying an IT company that was given a tender in Ekurhuleni, are you competent in that job? Or are you just taking money and doing nothing and then leaving the job incomplete? If you are competent, then you have nothing to worry about with running with the DA government. Because what we want is excellence, professionalism. People that when you're hired to do a job will deliver on that job. And that's the message we need people to get out there. For goodness sake, if you are not doing a job and all you're doing is pocketing money and leaving jobs incomplete, and I won't list the incomplete jobs in our communities, then those people mustn't vote for the DA. Because you don't have the moral fiber that we need. But if you know you're doing what is needed to be done for the betterment of this municipality and its people, then you will understand what my dream and vision for this municipality is. I want a city where my 17-year-old can come home and say, Mom, I want to start a business in Polar Park or in Tembisa because I saw an opportunity. And I want a city where we encourage people to say, I want to be an employer, not an employee. And those are the kind of cities that we must build. Because what we must start doing is build city-led economies. We can't rely on government. We're not there. We can't rely on province. Look at Makura and the PPE tenders. We must start saying, if we win Ekurhuleni, we set the tone for winning Gauteng in 2024 as the Democratic Alliance. Change will start here at local government. Then when we win Gauteng, we've already created a foundation for the Democratic Alliance, and people have tasted what it's like to be in a DA government. That's the city that I want to lead. So I'm not going to be long. All I want to say to you is, let's give our people hope that even though the Ekurhuleni is rotten, we are the people to give hope, to say, if you take courage, change your vote, try something different, try Refiloe, try the Democratic Alliance. Tomorrow, your life will be better. And we are building a future, because if we cannot fix Ekurhuleni today, we will not have a country to come back to. It hurts when you hear people saying, before we used to say white people are immigrating. Do you know today black people are immigrating because they've had enough of the corruption in this country? This is our country. equality, we must fight for it with everything we have. If it was something happening in your home, wouldn't you fix it? So let's go and give people hope so people can So I'm immigrating to Ekurhuleni in South Africa. I've heard the magic that is happening there. That's the city I want us to build. So if you can go on that trip with me, have courage to say to people, just once, even in this 5 years, because it's a 5-year taste of an Ekurhuleni government, let's show you what Eileen is experiencing on a daily basis in Cape Town. But it will take time. But the basics, we can start when we take office. So I want to say to you, there's a song that comes to mind as I'm closing. Let's go out there. Let's register as many people that believe in the DA vision. Let's bring hope to our people. And this song is called DA Yasebeletsa Meseli. And I want us to sing it together, because hard work, you reap what you sow in this world. Don't say to me after an election, I forgot to tell my neighbor, maybe she would have voted for the DA. By that time, we've lost that ward. Every ward, no matter how many votes we can get more people into council. And the more we get, my dream is not to go and say we're bringing ANC to under 50%. We need to win this municipality outright so we can completely implement the blue machine and the DA vision for the city. So with that words, I want to say thank you for taking the time out. I hope you know who I am. You know what I have to offer. I'm offering myself. And I'm prepared to say, holding hands with people, and I'm not a know-it-all. There's a team behind me. I work with people like Tanya, and I'm telling you, this city is going to give Cape Town a run for its money. So I want to say, with those few words, I thank you so much. Please take the message to your communities. Let them know that, I'm ready. I'm truly ready. I've made many sacrifices in my life. I've learned from the best, my own parents. Making sacrifices is not something I fear. And I also have a no-go zone. If I'm needed anyway, I'm ready to serve my people. Thank you very much. Allah!